Growing up in a Hispanic household, the kinds of foods that we have to eat are foods that are cheaper to make for a bigger group of people. It's a lot of rice, it's a lot of beans, it's a lot of fatty meats. Eating food at home wasn't always helping my fitness goals. It's not common for people to work out in a Hispanic household, and they can look down on you for it. They can make fun of you for it.
Julie Mora is a certified personal trainer. She's a master coach here at Slay, which is home to her growing list of Hollywood clients. Women's fitness, when culture conflicts with your health.
Our mothers and our grandmothers, they're growing up in fight or flight mode, I would say. And I know what it's like to be living a life, raising kids in fight or flight. And you don't have the extra energy to go and do your research, to go and find the foods that you should be eating. Like getting food on the table and getting enough of it is the priority. Hispanic moms have to do so much for so long for their children. And I think it's kind of time to take initiative. Ask mom what she needs help with.
What food are you definitely not giving up?
Ever?
Julie, welcome to Slay.
Thank you for having me.
I'm so excited that we get to sit down.
I know.
Outside of the gym and outside of all the work. What a pleasure. Jules, we're going to start at the top with, talk to me about your qualifications.
So I'm a NASM certified personal trainer. I've had to renew that certification, I want to say 3 times now.
Why 3 times?
Just because I've been training for the last 6 years now, I want to say. And I'm also pre and postnatal certified through ISSA, which has been fun. I've also done an in-person personal training internship where they taught me hands-on what I'm supposed to do with the client, what it looks like taking a person through, a personal training session. So I learned a lot through that.
How would you say that you, in particular, help women to reach their fitness goals?
I think I motivate women in the sense that I help them find mental strength. Their physical strength is one thing that's really important, but I think once they realize just how mentally strong they can be and how physically strong they can be, that really ties them in.
What inspired you to pursue a career in fitness? Like, how did you even get down this route?
When I was younger, my parents didn't have a lot of money, so like there was nothing really for me to do on summer break, summer vacation. So like I couldn't go out, didn't have money to spend. So I used to live like 2 streets away from this really steep hiking trail. So I would just go there. I would like run or I would walk there and I would do the hiking trail. And I did that like so much in the summer that when I would get back to school, I'd be so skinny. And like people are like, what? How are you so skinny? But like that's how it's been my time. And so pushing through those hard workouts and like going in 90-degree weather, that just made me really love fitness. But it also started because a lot of my family used to put me down for my weight. So like when I was younger, I was always the overweight one. And I feel like that always like instilled some type of like, I'm a fat girl mentality. So I was always obsessed with working out. But, when I got into adulthood and I was always in the gym, I was always bringing meal preps to work. My coworkers were like, you need to become a personal trainer. And I didn't even know that that was a thing. I didn't know that people could make money off of being personal trainers. And they're like, you need to get certified. And they were the ones who told me about NASM. And so one day I just got my money together and I became a personal trainer.
What were you doing before personal training when they were saying to you, you need to be a personal trainer?
I was working at a boba shop. So it was kind of hard because like I would bring meal preps to work and they were so healthy. But like at the same time, I had a really hard time with sweets and cravings. And boba was just one thing that never was nasty to me. So at work, drinking bobas, but then at the same time, eating my healthy meal preps. So it was kind of hard finding that balance, but I think it taught me a lot. It taught me just how much of a struggle I have with like saying no to sweets. But then it also taught me that like, if I want to stay in that balance lane, I have to eat a certain way. I can't just give in to all the kinds of foods, especially if I'm going to have this in my face.
Growing up in a Hispanic household, how has your cultural identity shaped your fitness journey?
It's difficult because growing up in a Hispanic household, like the kinds of sweets that we have on a daily basis, the kinds of foods that our grandparents make, our mothers make. I was raised by my grandma, so, she's cooking for a really big family. And so the kinds of foods that we have to eat are foods that are cheaper to make for a bigger group of people and not necessarily the best kind. So like it's a lot of rice, it's a lot of beans, it's a lot of fatty meats because they tend to be the cheaper meats. So eating food at home wasn't always helping my fitness goals.
What age did you realize that?
I think I was 16 when I realized that I wanted to eat different than my family. And like I said, it didn't start in a positive way. It started because like I was always obsessed with being skinny. But that also led me to like when we would go grocery shopping with my dad, for example, I would choose different foods for myself and I would keep them in the fridge and cook differently for myself.
What would you choose?
I like for snacks I would have yogurts and like my siblings really like hot pockets and stuff like that, which is something that a lot of Hispanics like to eat. So I would choose yogurts and granolas. And like for me as a young kid, I thought that was healthier. And I realized later on, like Yoplait is not that healthy. It's like if you want a healthy yogurt, you're gonna eat a Greek yogurt. And if you want to have a healthy granola, you're not gonna go for Nature Valley. You're gonna choose something different. But when I was younger, I thought that was what I should eat. And strawberry banana smoothies was a big thing too. Like I remember one time, my grandma noticed because I used to live behind my grandma's house.
Mm-hmm.
And I used to come and I would make strawberry banana smoothies every single day. And my grandma would notice it. And she's like, you know what? I think I'm going to have this smoothie with you too. She said, you're always so healthy.
My next question was going to be, did you feel supported by your family and your community in your fitness journey?
It's kind of weird because I feel like in a Hispanic household, it can go two ways and then it can go back and forth between those two ways. So
How
they
so?
can look down on you for it. They can make fun of you for it because like it's not common for people to work out in a Hispanic household. And, you know, it's not common for them to try to eat healthier. It's not common for them to try to cook with less oil. And so when you're the one trying to do that, your family's kind of like, do you think you're better than us? Or why are you doing that? Like, you don't need to do that. Like, I'm fine. I'm just healthy, even though like they're probably not that healthy. And me, for example, when I would work out, I would try to work out in the backyard because like there's nowhere for me to go. I don't have a gym membership.
Mm-hmm.
And so like if my uncle were to walk past me, he'd be like, why are you trying to work out? You're still gonna be fat. Like they would be so mean to me. And like my grandpa would say weird things to me. My dad always made fun of me for wanting to work out. And then grandmas and aunts are making these like snide comments if you're gaining too much weight and making you really feel it.
Mm-hmm.
But then when you start losing weight, they're kind of like, are you trying to be anorexic? Like, are you trying not to eat too much? So it's like there was never really a medium. It's like you couldn't make anybody happy. And I feel like that's still common today. Very common. And I think that there are some changes being made, but we're still far away from.
Absolutely. It sounds like the extreme ends of the spectrum. If you're working out, then, you know, what are you working out for? If, you know, you're eating a certain food, then, you know, somehow derogatory comments. So it sounded like there's a period of time perhaps where you felt like you perhaps just could not win either way.
Yeah.
Now I'm going to throw some stats out there. So Latinas are amongst the most unhealthy population in the US. 78.8% of Latina women are overweight or obese. What do you think it is about Hispanic culture that is attributing to such a high number?
I think there is some level of laziness, and I don't mean that in a bad way. I just think it's just not common for us to work out. Like I didn't have aunts that I can look up to that were working out. I didn't have uncles who were working out. I was really the odd one out.
Mm-hmm.
And even when I did work out, like it took them years to get on board. I think it took years of me being healthy and me having a good physical appearance for them to realize that our different lifestyles, we do have different lifestyles, and mine just seems to be the better option. So now I'm getting a lot of praise from my family, but it wasn't like that back then. Maybe cousins were praising me because they were like younger and they knew that I was doing something different that was actually working. But the older family, it's kind of hard to change their mind.
I was going to say, do you feel like it's changing with this emerging generation? Because some of the things that I feel might be in question are like education, access, you know, like having the financial ability to even access a gym membership.
Yeah.
So therefore, you probably had to be really, really resourceful when you were younger.
Oh, yeah.
There was
Booty bands.
Yeah.
Stuff like that. Like doing walking lunges up and down a hill because I used to live on a hill. So I used to do sprints and walking lunges, and I would take my booty bands and like do lunges with my bands and stuff. So that was definitely one thing that I had to do because I didn't have money for a gym membership.
So was there anyone in your family whatsoever, like in your parents' generation, grandparents' generation, that you saw working out?
I had one uncle, and
What was he doing?
he was doing like mountain biking, and he actually did have a gym membership. He's the one who actually got me my gym membership, which I really appreciate, and I'll always be thankful for it because I fell in love with the gym. I was always like, I was in sports, but I was never really good at them. But I always really loved the conditioning aspect of it. And I think he always knew that. And he always saw me working out. He was like, you know what, let me take you to the gym one day.
Oh,
So yeah, that's definitely one issue. I think that's why overweight is a big thing for us in the Latino community. But I also think the lack of education of food. Because like our mothers and our grandmothers, they're growing up in fight or flight mode, I would say. And I know what it's like to be living a life, raising kids in fight or flight. It's like you don't have the extra energy to go and do your research, to go and find the foods that you should be eating. Like that's kind of just the last thing on your mind. Like getting food on the table and getting enough of it is the priority. And so when we're buying foods that are cheaper to cook for bigger portions so that we can keep our families full, but we don't know what those things are, and we don't know what the best foods are for ourselves. And like I said, the meats that we like to cook in the traditional foods that we eat are higher fat. The they're filled with carbs. They have a lot of fats. And so I think our mothers and our grandmothers were never going to take the time to go and find out what carbs are, what fats are, what kinds of proteins are the best to eat, how much on each plate. And so I think that's what contributes to those high rates of obesity.
In the household, how many people would you say your grandmother was cooking for every night?
I want to say about 8.
Wow.
Because we had uncles living with us. We had uncles who had kids. And so everybody, and like I said, I lived in my grandma's back house, and she had a few, because it was kind of like complexes back there. And so we were all coming in and out of her house. And so I kind of had it easy in the sense that I lived in one of the back houses, and I had my own fridge with my dad. So I could control what I put in my fridge. But if I lived inside my grandma's house, I don't think that it would have been as easy for me to cook separate food and put it in there, because like there's so much other food in there, because she has to cook so much of it. And so I really feel for people who live at home who don't have a separate fridge, because it can be difficult. And for grandmothers or mothers who are cooking foods, like sometimes that's their form of love. And if you're denying their food, if you're denying the one way that they're showing you love, it's like it's almost a fight. And so I understand, and I feel for the people who feel like they can't stick up for themselves, or not even sticking up for themselves, because it's not that deep.
Yeah.
But not being able to say like, hey, I kind of want to eat this because this is better for me. It's like mom knows best, and she thinks she knows best. So that's what we're going to eat. And so I really feel for that.
Yeah, I feel like, just hearing that story in and of itself, if I'm thinking I'm cooking for 8, I mean, how many people do you cook for like every single night right now?
2.
Exactly. So like, can you imagine what it's like cooking for 8 people on a budget, trying to get everybody fed? The priority there is just so completely different than counting macros and this, that, and the other, and everybody else's freaking, protein needs. Like, it's just not a priority, is it?
No.
And is there one thing, as I was talking to you, I was like, if there are young people at home who are living in these kind of multifamily unit situations, if there's one thing or one piece of equipment, whether it be a fridge or something else that they could potentially invest in, if they have this desire to be able to change their health, and if they have the financial means to be able to purchase different foods, what would you say that tool is? Because for you, it sounded like it was maybe a fridge, but I feel like, there are so many tools that I use every day that make cooking healthier an easier process.
What would I say? I honestly think that having a mini fridge is the best thing. Like, even though I want to think of other things, it's like, okay, we could have a separate stovetop, or we could have like a rice cooker that also does steaming, so that you could steam your vegetables. But like, where's that food gonna go?
Yeah.
Especially when there's like already leftovers in the fridge. There's already all the ingredients that they're gonna need for the week. There's no space. So I really do truly think that a separate mini fridge is the best option. But I know that is something that some people can't afford. And especially like in the Latino community, you start working, depending on what your situation is. If you start working, like the money's going to the family. So to buy a separate fridge for yourself isn't always an option.
Yeah.
And so when I was thinking about it, I was thinking like, how can somebody who's living in a multifamily house or just like with that many people, like how can we advocate for ourselves? And I think one of the best things is just having those hard conversations with the person who is cooking the food. And I think a lot of us are, coming into adulthood, and like I know a few adults who say, like, I can't eat like that because my mom doesn't cook that. And I'm just like, well, you're an adult, like you can cook. And I think we put that responsibility on mom, and I think that's also a problem in and of itself, is like Hispanic moms have to do so much for so long for their children, even when their children grow up. And I think it's kind of time to take initiative and like step into the kitchen, ask mom what she needs help with. And I had a conversation with a client the other day because she wanted her mom to make her a certain type of ground beef. And then she found out that her mom cooks it with vegetable oil. And I was like, well, that's a problem right there. Like so many Hispanic moms use vegetable oil. And one is because it's the cheapest option. It does taste like really good when you cook our types of foods, but also it's what they know, and they don't know anything else. And so I had a conversation with her asking her, like, can we ask her to change that? And she was like, no, she's not willing to do it, until she went home and found out the big difference between avocado and vegetable oil. And she was like, I had to have that conversation with my mom right away. I just went to go buy her the bottle, and I was like, we're going to try this. And I think that that's something that we should be doing. I think we should be educating our moms, educating our grandmas, because they're not going to find this information on their own. Like we have social media.
Yes.
We have this information in our face all the time. We're very lucky, but they don't.
Absolutely.
And they're never going to find it out. And I think it's time to kind of get into the kitchen and do things for ourselves.
I love that. I love the idea of kind of lightening the load for the generation that has effectively, made it so that we can even exist. And more importantly, exist in conditions that are far better, perhaps than they grew up in and they had to endure when they were our age. What does a common meal look like in a Hispanic household?
I know we do a lot of carne guisada, which is like meat cooked in its own chile. And we use a lot of fatty meats for that. So like costillas is like this like kind of meat that has a lot of fat in it, and they're big chunks, but it's like cheap to make. And then we pair it with rice, and then we pair it with beans, and then we eat a tortilla with it. So like we'll eat the meat with the tortilla, and then we'll have the rice and the beans on the side.
Got you.
And so now that's 3 different types of carbs and 1 protein, which doesn't carry a lot of protein.
What type of meat is that typically?
Red meat. It's a lot of red meat.
So it could be beef.
Could be beef, yeah. It could be like pork types of meat. And so that's very common. Like even if you go to a restaurant and you get a taco plate, you'll get 2 tacos with tortilla, and then you'll get the beans, and then you'll get the rice. And now that's 3 different types of carbs in your plate again.
Why is that a problem?
Because we shouldn't have that many carbs in one meal. We should balance the way that we eat our meal. And so we want to have a good source of protein. We want to have 1 carb at least and 1 fat at least, along with the vegetable. And sometimes the vegetables are missing, or sometimes the vegetables are cooked in a lot of oil, and it's kind of hard to get away from it. So I think if we have those conversations like at home, or if, we could give a piece of advice to somebody who's making that food, it's like, why don't we eliminate one of these carbs? Because I don't think that we need a rice and we need a bean. Let's take one of them out and replace it with some type of vegetable, so that we have a more balanced meal. And then I think also, if we're taking it a step further, if you're cooking in your own home, ask yourself, how many times during the week do we need to have this type of fatty meat? It's like we could have it maybe twice a week, so that we feel like we're not missing out on the authenticity of our food.
What alternatives could you recommend?
You could cook chicken in that same chile sauce, and it'll make it way less calorie, way higher protein, and it's also not as expensive. So I think that's a really good option. That's something that I do, because I like to eat tostadas with green chile. And so sometimes it's with meat and sometimes it's with chicken, and I prefer to do it chicken if I'm having that on a daily basis.
Nice. What about vegetables? Because we talked about this a couple of times in the gym, and you were saying that there's, sometimes virtually no vegetables on a plate. What does that typically look like? I was like, what do you mean?
Honestly, the vegetables looks like the chile that we make. So like the chile is going to be made out of vegetables. We have onions, we have tomatoes, we have jalapenos, but like sometimes we'll have maybe a corn on the cob, but it's not like we're going to have like some broccoli on there. We're not going to have asparagus. We do like to cook with a lot of bell peppers,
Mm-hmm.
which we saute down. But then, when our moms are making them, they saute them with a lot of oil. So I think those small things that we can start to teach our mothers, or just like people who are cooking our food, or just ourselves for the future, for when we make our own meals, is we don't need that much oil to cook and saute our vegetables. We can lessen it, and it'll still taste just as good. It'll just be 10 times better for you.
So in your household, like if you're coming in with a plate full of broccoli and carrots and stuff like that, like, is there any judgment there? Are people saying, like, in my mind, I'm like, are they thinking that this is like a change in culture for you?
Yeah.
And a step away from perhaps your culture?
Yeah, it's definitely white people food. And
yeah,
definitely white people food. And that's something that like we make fun of each other for. And I think we need to change that narrative. It's like, no, this is just healthy food. And I think it's wrapped around a really negative point of view. But we definitely hear it. Like, for example, I had a brunch with my family, and I said that I would bring eggs and chicken sausage. And my uncle right away was like, Julie's trying to bring her healthy stuff. She's not invited anymore. And I'm like, chicken sausage? Like, it has so much fat. It's not even like healthy. It's just chicken sausage. But like this idea that somebody who likes to eat healthy is bringing a meal, like they just assume that it's going to be like a healthy meal.
I feel like dinner parties hate to see me come in.
Yes. Yes.
I've ruined a few dinner parties. I'm surprised I even get invited back. Do you ever experience any pushback for, perhaps not eating traditional dishes? And more importantly, any pushback for, perhaps demanding or asking for different portion sizes?
Yeah. I've had my share of like my grandma, on both ends, feeling kind of like when I don't want more than what they're giving me, or when I ask them for a little bit less, or, when they ask me if I want seconds and I'm like, no. And they're like, come on, like, ándale. ¿Por qué no? And I'm like, it's because I just don't want that much, and I don't need that much. And I think there was a time where I would have had it, but I'm like, it's just not necessary for me right now. And I don't think they understand that I just know my body and I know myself. But like I said, that's their way of showing love. And I wish that it was different and they had a different way of showing us love, because like we're really hurting their feelings when we're saying no. But at some point you have to, because like your health really does come first. And I think also I've learned that I can't push the way that I eat on them. And also I have such a deep appreciation for our food. I love Mexican food, and I have gone through so many years where I had to restrict it because I was young and I really, really wanted to be skinny. And I was like, I'm not going to eat this. But like, I always felt like I was missing out. And I'm like, how can I find the balance where I don't have to miss out when I come and visit my family, but when I go home, I eat what I have to eat? And so that's where, my lifestyle has really helped me, because like I go home and I meal prep. And people are so surprised that after all these years, I'm still meal prepping. And I'm like, it's not because I'm constantly trying to be skinny. It's just, this is the kind of food that I need. And so when I go to my grandma's house and she has tamales and pozole, which are two completely carb-loaded foods with like just a little bit of protein, and like most of the time it's pork. I'm like, I don't want to say no. But also, I'm not going to stuff my face to the extent to where I used to when I was younger.
What food are you definitely not giving up?
Ever? Tortillas. I still eat them. I eat them, I want to say, on a weekly basis. But it's like those tortillas are coupled with other really great sources of carbs. And I'm not overdoing it. I'm not like, for example, we eat chilaquiles, and the chilaquiles are like they're all tortillas. They're cut into little triangles. You're never going to eat like less than 3 in one bowl of chilaquiles. It's going to be like 5 or 6. And then you fry them in oil, and then you put them back on your plate, and like you put cheese and you put sour cream. So it's like a bunch of fats and a bunch of carbs. And then a lot of people in our culture will pick it up with another tortilla.
Tortilla sandwich.
Yes, I'm like, this is so much. And I understand that this is how they've ate for so long, but at the same time, I just can't do it. So I do have chilaquiles every once in a while, but like I find a way to just add more protein. Like either that's more eggs plus egg whites, or putting like a piece of chicken sausage on the side, or just shredded chicken on top, because like I need to make it digestible for me.
So Julie, how do you navigate cultural expectations around food during family gatherings and holidays? Because these are those big occasions when perhaps your grandma wants to go all out and really splash out on everyone. What are you doing in those scenarios?
So I'm not gonna be the family member who brings the healthy dish. I'm just not. Like, I know that I can't force my lifestyle on them because that's just gonna make them push back more. And that's one thing about our culture is we're very, very prideful, and the way that we are is the way that we are. And sometimes you just need to be the example and show them why what you're doing differently is the better option. Because now, like before, I used to walk in and they'd be like, you're not even gonna eat today, da, 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 da. Like, you're not gonna eat because like, you don't like this food or you're trying to be skinny. And now I think they've seen that every time I do come, I do eat. I eat what they eat and I don't restrict, and I enjoy it just the way that they do, but I look different for some reason. And I talk about how, like, I go to the gym consistently. I don't make excuses for why I can and can't go to the gym, and I cook well at home. And I think the way that I look makes them curious and it makes them ask questions. And I think that that's something that wasn't happening before. Like, they weren't interested before, but I think now they're seeing, like, years have gone by and now people are experiencing, like that they're gaining weight, or they go to the doctor and they hear something they don't want to hear. And now they're like, oh, well, something needs to change. And so now they'll pick my brain. And now I'm the example for them, which is really nice because I feel like in that way I can contribute without making them feel like I'm changing anything about the way that our family lives. But I have that luxury because I don't live with them.
Right.
And so I feel like if I did live with my grandma, I would maybe put a little bit more effort into, like, maybe we could cook this a little bit differently. Maybe we don't need this much oil for that. But it's really nice to be able to step away, do what I do on my end. And I think that that's just what people should do.
Jules, what would you say the average Latina's relationship is with fitness?
I feel like it's a little different for everybody because some of us are starting to really dial into like the new ways of fitness and how, just like eating well, eating the right foods, going to the gym. But then there's a whole other spectrum where it's like wearing a bunch of like the waistbands.
Right.
Yeah, wearing fajas. Juice cleanses. Juice cleanses are so huge, and I wish that's one thing that I wish I could change. Is this idea in Latino culture that like you have to be on Herbalife and drinking smoothies and having juice cleanses to lose weight. And I think that that's just like a desperate measure. Like, we're so desperate to change our bodies that we think that these are the extreme measures that we need to go to. We need to be uncomfortable in the gym wearing these like sweatbands around our waists. But that's just not the case. And I think it's kind of split half and half. Some girls are realizing that you can eat foods and you can eat like our traditional foods plus, good meal prepped food. And you can go to the gym and you can lift weights. And that's what's going to do it for you, because I feel like a lot of women still think that if you go to the gym, you're going to get bulky. And so I feel like we're kind of pulling those other women in, but it has been difficult.
Do you see an uptick in the amount of Latina women that are coming into the gym and moving over from like cardio machines and group fitness into the weight section? Or is it just about the same as it always has been?
Yeah, I see a lot of it. And I think it's because our mothers and our grandmothers are starting to feel weaker. And I think that's something that's really important to them now. I've had so many conversations with older Latina women who are like, oh, I need to get in the gym because, my bones. I think they're learning that it's good for your bones. And if you don't want to lose bone density, if you don't want to lose muscle, you're going to have to be in the gym. And I think that's because the younger girls are really starting to show them like, this is something that's important to us. We're going to go to the gym. We're going to do it consistently, because I feel like for a long time, it's like you go to the gym for a week, you don't go anymore for 3 months, you maybe go for 2 days, you don't go for 3 months. But now it's like, it's a fun thing to do. The kids are doing it. The kids are going in groups. And so I see like huge groups of like Latino kids in the gym, and it like makes me happy because I'm like, you're here every single week. And it's been like, you're not even taking a break. And I think older women are starting to see that.
Have you had to educate family members on your health choices?
Yeah. I mean, I've gotten so much pushback, and like, they're like, oh, like, why do you want to eat so little? You don't eat anything at all. And actually my sister's the one who jumps in for me, because she's like, that girl eats so much. What are you talking about? Like, she eats more than me. And I'm like, because I can eat a lot of food if I'm eating the right foods.
What are
And
the
you
right
can't.
foods for you?
I mean, cooking chicken, cooking ground turkey, and just like cooking it in a way that tastes good for you. Eating more potatoes, eating rice, eating vegetables, and eating it consistently, you know? And I feel like in a Latino household, it's like it can be very like two different meals only, but like really fattening meals. And so that's why they're not seeing any progress, because like they're barely eating, but they're eating a lot of the wrong foods at the same time. And my sister kind of noticed that with us, with our dynamic. She's like, why do you eat so much and you're not gaining weight? And I barely eat anything and I can gain weight so easily. And so I think that has made her pick my brain over time. And so now when she sees and hears our family members ask me and like sees their confusion, she's like, well, because she's doing all the right things. And so now she kind of defends me in that sense.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's led them to want to ask more questions and learn more from me.
So from an education perspective, it sounds like there are a lot of kind of gaps in the knowledge. Have you ever gotten to the point with family members where you've sat them down and been like, you know what, I'm going to write you a training plan and I'm going to write you like a nutritional plan and this is how you're going to get in shape?
I have done it with a few family members, the ones who I feel like are a little more serious, because there are some family members who want to pick my brain, but the second I tell them something difficult, they're like, oh no, that's just too much. And I'm like,
Okay.
it is. I'm like, okay, I'm not going to waste my breath.
Has anybody stuck to anything?
No.
Do you feel like they kind of start and then give up after a period of time, or there's a drop off and a lack of consistency?
Yeah, I think it's just a lack of consistency. And like I said, every family dynamic is so different. Everybody has their own struggles. And like you said, like it sounds like it's super exhausting to have to worry about yourself and like worry about tracking when you're taking care of all these people. And that's such a big thing. But I do have some family members who kind of admire from afar, and then at some point when I hang out with them again, they're like, this is what I've been doing and this is what I've been doing. And I'm like, it's so nice to hear that they're making those changes in their lives and like they feel like they can talk to me about that because it's something that we can connect with.
I bet. Have you ever dragged anyone into the gym?
Dragged? Yeah.
Or invited?
Yeah, I actually I used to want to drag my sister to the gym and she never wanted to. And then she once asked me, like, she's like, hey, I really want to try to make some changes. Do you think you can train me? And so she actually paid me. Like, she really paid me to train her. And it was so funny. The first session, she was like, this is what you do? I was like, yeah. She's like, I thought you just like hung out with people all day and just like, oh.
What did she mean by this is what you do? What did you have her do that day?
So I took her through all of her main movement patterns to see what we need to work on, if she has any imbalances or like any extreme tightness somewhere. And so when I helped her with like certain pieces of form, she was like, wait, you saw like just by the way that I did my squat, you knew like what needed to change? I'm like, yeah, because this is my job. And she's like, I didn't know that this is like so real. I was like, yeah, I kind of work.
She just thinks you leave the house, go and hang out, and then
I just go
home.
hang out with people. And I think a lot of people think that about personal trainers. And I mean, especially like,
why do you think that is? Is that a Hispanic thing, or do you think in general?
I think that's in general. I think they just think that we don't know a lot. And I mean, I understand it because no shade to big box gyms, but like there's not a lot of effort going into teaching these trainers how to be good trainers. And so they have to go through their trial and error. And I think a lot of people are watching trial and error and they're like, trainers suck. And it's like, well, one, that trainer could probably improve. And you don't know that. Like, you don't know if they're starting out and they can be a really cool or badass trainer 3 years from now. And so I think they just have this negative perception of us that we don't know what we're doing or whatever. But there are a lot of us out there who go the extra mile to learn more and to learn how to prevent injury, how to help somebody come out of knee pain, or how to help somebody loosen all of their muscles and move better. And a lot of learning goes into it. And I think people don't understand that we actually do take the time to learn this stuff. Like, we didn't just learn what macros are reading one website. Like, we really put some time into it, and now we know how to eat well because of it. And this is the knowledge that we're giving to the people who are paying us. And I feel like there's a lot of men out there who, because like in Latino culture, women stay home and men go to work.
Mm.
And what women do with the money, it's like, usually it's, if it's for the family, it's fine. But if it's for you, it's like, do you really need it? And so when women want to hire personal trainers, men don't think it's worth it because they're like, you can work out at home or I can teach you. And it's like, the man isn't even in shape himself. And so how are you going to teach your wife how to eat better? And so they think that the woman isn't getting anything out of it until they realize, like, until they see their wife making some real changes. And they're like, oh, like, that was actually worth it for you.
So how do you think that machismo and those like traditional gender roles impact women's participation in fitness? Does it hold them back?
Oh, yeah, it holds them back so much. And I think because, you know, as a woman, in those roles, in those traditional roles, her job is to take care of the family. And if she's going to do anything for herself, it's like, well, you don't work, so you don't need to do any of that. Like, you don't work, so you almost don't deserve to take that break for yourself. And I think it's seen almost as a luxury for a woman to get to go work out.
What do you say to that?
I think that we need to advocate for ourselves a little more and stop being afraid of our husbands. And I understand that, you know, we think that this is our role. We think that this is who we should be. But at the end of the day, you can't pour from an empty cup. Like, you can't be the best for your children if you can't move well. You can't be the best for your children if your mind is always groggy, or if you're always like, if you're ignoring your hunger cues, like if you don't even have hunger cues. That's something that a lot of people are struggling with right now because they don't know that, like, that agitation that you're feeling every single day could be because you're hungry or because you're dehydrated. The fact that you can't have a simple conversation like with your child after God knows how many hours is because you're probably hungry and you can't handle them right now because you need to take a break and you need to go have a meal. And you're not, you're not releasing any of your stress in any other way. And so I think it needs to stop being seen as a luxury to be able to go to the gym. Like, it needs to be seen as a necessity, because if you really, like, if a man really wants his wife to be the best that she can be, she's going to have to go to the gym. Like, she can't be everything she needs to be for the house while not taking care of herself. And I think that us women, like, we deserve to feel our best too. And I think a lot of women regret after so many years having put so much effort and energy into their family, and then at the end of it, they don't even love that they see in the mirror. And I don't think it's fair.
What do you do for your own stress release?
I go to the gym.
Is there a move in the gym? Because I have one. Like, if one of the girls is having a really bad day, then there's one move that I will pull out and I'm like, right, we're doing this today. Do you have one of those, like a go-to that you know if your client's like having a real shitter?
Oh, ball slams.
Yeah, mine's the same.
Every time, like when I
ball
really
slam.
feel like my client is under a lot of stress, like I'll give them a ball slam, and then after they're like, I needed that.
Isn't it crazy?
Yeah. Mine personally is a squat.
Really?
Yeah.
How so?
I don't know, just like coming out of the hole after having like such weight on your back and just like pressing that off the ground. It just feels so good to me.
I love that. I do love a ball slam. I feel like it's, I feel like every woman needs to have a medicine ball that she can slam in her garage or just anywhere about the house, because when life gets too much, good God, that can really save like a trip to the jail.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
I've literally saved myself from charges.
Yeah. And we deserve to advocate for ourselves in that sense. And I think we're afraid to hear the other person say no, like when we're asking for that support. Like and I actually learned this from my therapist, because I used to, and I still do, I struggle with it. When I want something and I'm afraid to ask for it, it's because I'm anticipating what they're going to tell me. And I'm like, well, they're going to say this if I say that. And she's like, well, have you had this conversation? And I was like, no. She's like, well, then how do you know they're going to say that? You don't know if they're going to take that well. And I think we're afraid to ask for what we need. And so when you're afraid to ask for ask your husband, can we eat this instead of this? It's like, you don't know if he's willing to give that to you. You don't know if he's willing to give you the time to go to the gym to do what you have to do. And I think sometimes we use that as an excuse. Like, oh, we can't go to the gym or we can't eat this way because of my family. But it's like, well, maybe if we communicated how important that is for you, because nobody's going to advocate for you the way that you advocate for yourself.
100%.
If you don't do it, nobody's going to come and step up to the plate. And I think we live too long of a life to live it feeling so uncomfortable in our own skin.
And these conversations that you've had with your partner, Jaime,
Luckily, I haven't had to because we see eye to eye in it. Like he himself, like the gym is his outlet and eating well is his outlet. And I think we both understand that if we don't eat this way and if we don't move this way, we're going to be two completely different people. And I mean, there are times in the house like where I do need help and I'll be super, super stressed. And I'm like, I don't want to ask him for help because I know he's already tired. But then he'll notice how stressed out I am. And he's like, do you want me to do this? And I'll be like, okay. And I'm like, oh my God, like he was willing to do that. And it's like, we're afraid, like we don't know what people are willing to do for us. But if we don't ask, it's never going to happen.
What advice do you give to other Latinas who want to be healthy but are feeling like culturally conflicted or stifled in that way in their relationships?
I think it sounds so silly, but just have the conversation, have the sit down. And I feel like I said, a lot of things that we do, if it's completely opposite of what's traditional for us, they're like, that's so white. Such a white way to live, you know, and having a sit down conversation is such a white thing to do. But sometimes that's just what you need. And we do need to break these cultural norms because it's not normal. It's not normal to not be able to talk to your partner. It's not a good thing. It's not good for your relationship. And I think some things we do actually need to change. I don't think we fully need to change the way that we eat. There are different things we could do that make it so that we can eat those traditional foods and still feel really good in our skin. But there are certain things that are normal in our culture that should not be anymore. And I think some of us are starting to wake up to it, but for others, it's a little bit difficult, especially when you're so deep in those traditions.
For real. Now, you mentioned change. You undertook a humongous change in your training recently. Julie, you trained for the Nike After Dark half marathon and completed it this past weekend. How was that, Jules? How was your body feeling?
My body was feeling really good.
This is
I want to say that it was super difficult, but I think that I really took my training seriously. I took it so seriously because I'm like, I can't not do well. I just can't. And I wasn't a runner, and I'm like, I can't go out like this.
Take us through that. How long did you have to get ready?
I had technically 3 months, but I took a trip on that first month, and so I only had 2. I used an app called Runna that I input how many days I wanted to train in the gym and how many days I wanted to run. And I learned very quickly that the reason why a lot of us aren't good runners is because we overexert too much too fast. That app really helped to slow me down, taught me how to run at a kind of slower pace so that I could build up that cardiovascular and build up that cardiovascular aspect of running. And then once I was able to get that under control, I feel like my body kind of just started catching up with me. And every time like I added 2 more miles to my long run, it did kind of mess my body up. Like my knees felt a little sore, but I didn't panic. I rested. I did all of the foam rolling that I needed to do. I focused a lot on my nutrition. I made sure that I was fueled the entire time. And, you know, the knee pain would go away. And I think sometimes we panic a little when we feel a little bit of pain, but that's kind of just discomfort. Your body's not used to something like that. And so I tried my best to just stay calm in those moments and just push through. But
how many miles in were you before your body started to hurt?
During the marathon?
Into training in general.
My first 6-mile run, that was the one where I was like, oh my God, my knees. Like, I don't think that I was used to running that much. But like I said, I had to really slow down my running. And I think that slowing down kind of puts a little more pressure on the knees because like it's kind of a heavier stomp, and I do have a heavy stomp. Maybe if I was sprinting, I wouldn't feel that much pressure, but like it's a marathon. You can't sprint for a marathon. And I think slowing down really did help me actually finish. But
And then what about on the day?
On the day, I just focused on fueling, getting as many carbs as I could into my body. Hydrating. I think
what's the purpose of carbohydrates and fueling?
They're the ones that give you the energy to keep running. When you're running, you're burning through those carbs. And so that's why like when people are taking in those gels, like they have carbs and they have sodium because that's what's giving you that energy to keep running.
And what did you do to stay motivated?
What did I do to stay motivated? I think I just really used my app. I think the app really helped me because I wanted to cross off those workouts. I wanted to make sure that I was reaching the pace that was set for me. And I had input the time that I wanted to finish at. And I was like, if I can keep hitting these PRs in my running during my training, I just know that I can get that number. And I got it exactly on the money,
What was the
which is
goal?
the goal was 2:30.
Amazing.
I know. I wanted to like I on the app I put 2:30, but like mentally I was like, I want to finish in 2 hours. And it didn't happen. But I mean, at least I got it in 2:30. So I was really happy about that.
Incredible for your first run. Do you feel like you had to sacrifice any other parts of your training in order to keep up with the running, or did your gym workouts still go as planned?
My gym workouts were still going as planned, except for when I had those really long runs. So like sometimes I had like an 8-mile run and I just like, it took so much out of me. That 10-mile run took so much out of me. And I was like, I don't even want to go to the gym anymore. And I did notice that it was hard for me to retain my muscle mass a month into that kind of training. I think it's just like too much running coupled with strength training. I don't think that I was able to build any more muscle mass from there. I was able to like keep what I had, but to say that I was building, no.
No chance.
No.
Is it something that you'd recommend?
Yeah. I think everybody should try it. And that was something that like I never wanted to do a marathon. It was never something I had in mind. I always looked at people who were running and I'm like, why are you running? Like running is just so, you don't even need to run. Like just do some stairs or like hit some sprints. Like running this long is so unnecessary. But I think it just gave me so much confidence. Like the fact that I was able to set a PR, like set a goal and hit it and do something different. I never thought that I could run for that long. Like I said, I would always overexert. And so I would be sprinting through my miles. And so I could never get like past 2 miles without having to stop. And being able to run like 6+ miles without stopping is just, it did so much for me and for my confidence.
What did you learn about yourself through the whole experience?
I learned that I need to stop saying I can't do something. Like I always say that I can't do things. And I had a coach who used to tell me, you need to take that word out of your vocabulary. Can't. He's like, you're always can't this, can't that. And it's like, I can't. And so I didn't think that I would ever run or that I ever could run 6 miles without stopping. And I can. And so I think I just showed myself that.
Is this the end or the beginning of your running career?
You know, I don't want to say that it's either. I don't want to say that I'll stop running. I think, you know, running 3 miles, like just for funsies is kind of fun. I really do enjoy it. I think I liked what it did to my body. I don't think I want to run a full marathon. So don't ask me if I want to run a full. I don't. I could probably run another half.
Now, obviously, you've been joining us and leading some of the workouts down at Slay Athletic Club. So explain what that is and what your role in it is.
Slay Athletic Club is a run club that we started that focuses on speed and agility, but we also have another aspect of it for people who aren't runners, who don't like to run, or who maybe want to start running, but they're not confident in it yet. So we do have a walking element, which I usually take people through. It's been really, really nice building community, giving people something to look forward to, especially now going into summer. Like people always want things to do, and an outdoor workout is just, there's something so special to it. You walk out of it feeling so great. And I think, you know, what sets us apart is that we really focus on like the small intricate parts of running that some run clubs maybe don't do. And
what's been your favorite workout there so far?
There was one workout that we did where we were kind of like going in a loop around the stairs. Like we'd go down and then we would kind of jog a little bit and then run up. And then we did lateral walks the entire way back. I think that one was really fun because the legs felt really strong, but it didn't feel like too much. There was stairs. There was a day that we did stairs, but everybody was so miserable.
What do you think about the venue?
I think the venue's great.
Where is it?
So much sun. It's at the Hollywood Bowl. The sun is like, it hits so nicely. You know, like I said, like a workout in the sun is just, it feels so good after. And I think the stairs give a little bit of a to all of our workouts because we get to use those. Stair sprints are really fun. I think it's like kind of in the middle between people who don't like to directly sprint, but then people who don't want to only walk. So like stairs just adds a little bit of the in-between.
If there's somebody at home that's thinking, or maybe I could try that, maybe I could get out of my comfort zone, what advice would you have for them?
I would say just come out and just do the walking group. See what it feels like for you. The walking group does a good job of kind of incorporating some of the things that the runners might do or might do in the future. And I think it's a good way to test yourself, see if you can actually keep that up for, I don't know, what, 20 minutes, 45 minutes, and just get out of your comfort zone. And I think that the energy and the people that are there are really going to motivate you to want to keep coming and want to keep pushing yourself.
Love that. Julie, what's next for you and what did you come to slay?
I have a friend who wants me to do a half marathon with them in October, which I'm thinking I might do. I do want to focus a little bit more on my sprinting. I think that's like an element that's really exciting for me, because I did like hill sprint practice. I practiced doing hill sprints before my marathon, and I think it really helped me with when it came to the hills at the marathon. So I'm like, I kind of want to incorporate more sprinting. But we'll see. Maybe the half marathon is something that's going to be coming up for me.
And what did you come to slay, Julie?
I came to slay that as a Latina, you can live a traditional life and indulge in all of the traditional things without having to give up the confidence that you feel in your skin.
I love that, Julie Mora. Thank you for slaying with us.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
That concludes this episode of Slay. Stay tuned for more empowering discussions on female health, fitness, and life. You can follow Julie at JulesKWest_ on Instagram, and you can follow me at Louise Hazel. You can also follow Slay at Slay Athletic Club, and don't forget to subscribe to the Slay podcast if you haven't done so already on YouTube. You can also get fit at home using the Slay app. You can download that now for free from the App Store to join our online community. And lastly, if you're in Los Angeles, come and join us on Saturdays at 9:30 a.m. at the Hollywood Bowl for Slay Athletic Club, our new run club experience for women. Hit the link in my bio on Instagram to register.